Hi, this is Rich, and I'm going to show you how to do Task 2 of Lab 1 for CIS 90. Let's bring up our lab. Okay, we'll click on CIS 90, Calendar. Go down to Lesson 1 here, and in Lesson 1, look for Assignment. There's Lab 1. Alright, we'll scroll down. We did Task 1. Let's go to Task 2. There we go. So Task 2, we're going to log into Sunwa via Opus. So what that means is we're going to first log into Opus using, in this case I'll be using PuTTY. If you're on a Mac, you'll be using your terminal, using the SSH command from the terminal to get to Opus. But in this case, since I'm using Windows, I'm going to be using PuTTY to get to Opus. And then from Opus, everyone will use the SSH command, regardless of whether they're Mac or Windows, to get to Sunwa. So let's do it. Let me open PuTTY, and let's log on to Opus. Okay. oslab.edu, and it's 2220. And you know, I don't like to have to type this every single time, so I'm just going to give it a name, Opus, and say save. Okay, now let's try it here. There's Opus. I should just be able to double click on it and go right in now and not have to type it each time. So I want to go in as Symben again. Okay, hit the enter key to accept the terminal type xterm, and I'm on Opus. Now next step is I want to go to Sunwa from Opus. So I'm going to use the SSH command. So I've made an SSH connection from my home computer to Opus. Now from the Opus server, I'm going to make another SSH connection from Opus to Sunwa. SSH. And I need to log in using, I'm going to use Benji's login on Sunwa. Sunwa is actually a member of a Windows Active Directory domain. So what that means is we have to specify the name of the domain, CIS Lab, in front of the username. So the name of the domain is CIS Lab. We put 2 backslashes, and then the regular username. Okay, so that's the user. Now we also have to say what computer we want to log in. We want to log in on Sunwa. Like that. Okay, so command is SSH. The argument we're giving to the command is cislab////symben90 at Sunwa. Let's try it. Okay. We're getting that little warning. The warning means that, are you really sure that this is the computer that you think you're connecting to? So I'm looking at that fingerprint and I'm saying, yep, that's Sunwa, right? I'm going to do it. Yes, I trust it. Okay, now I have to enter the password for Benji. There we're in. We're in on Sunwa. Now I did the SSH command using a host name, Sunwa. Okay, I could have just as easily used the IP address, and I'll show you how that works. Before we do that, though, I want you to take a look at the prompt. Notice how the prompt has changed. On Opus, our prompt was /home/CIS90 Symben space $space. That's our prompt on Opus. So the bash shell on Opus displays that shell prompt every time it wants you to enter a command, and we entered the SSH command. But now the prompt on Sunwa is different. It shows the name of the user, including the domain name, at the host name of the computer, space a tilde. The little tilde stands for home directory. It's got some square brackets, I think just for aesthetics, and then a $sign. So the only thing similar here is the $sign. They want you to enter a command after the $sign. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to exit back to Opus to show you now that we could have just as easily done this with an IP address. We don't have to use the host name. So we're back on Opus. See how the prompt has changed? We're back to the Opus prompt, style of prompt. Let's use our up arrow key to pull from history a previous command so I don't have to type it again. That's the last command we used. What I'm going to do is backspace over to Sunwa and put the IP address for Sunwa. right. Ask for the password. Okay, and we're back on Sunwa. You can see that the prompt is now the Sunwa style of prompt. That's just to show you that you could go either way here with either a host name or an IP address. Okay, let's try a few commands here. Commands we learned from task 1. Date shows the time and the date. How about cal? Okay, that shows the calendar. How about, let's see who's logged in here. Okay, we've got a bunch of people logged in. We've got someone on one of the graphical user interfaces. Okay, we've got Homer here is logged in from another computer on campus, the CIS lab 172.20.4.13. Juliet is logged in on PTS1. Homer was on PTS0. Juliet came in on PTS1. She logged in from 4.27. That's yet a different system. I'm logged in from yet another system on campus. Okay, and Hugo's logged in from yet another system on campus. Okay, let's see if they're anybody active or if they're idle. Let's see. Do that again. I want to repeat it. Okay, so Juliet says old. That means she's been on there for a long, long time and hasn't done anything. Okay. RSIM's account hasn't typed anything on the keyboard for 24 minutes. Hugo hasn't typed anything for 18 minutes. And we are SimBen90, and we're definitely active here because we're typing away. Let's do this now. Let's bring up the Opus session so we can compare notes between. We're gonna bring up a second login session in the Opus and just compare the output of these commands between Sunwa here and Opus. Run. Remember I've already configured Opus now, so I don't have to type it in. The oslab dot, and we'll log in as SimBen. Okay. So here's SimBen on oslab. Here is SimBen on Sunwa. Let's do some comparisons. So first comparison, who command. Do who here. We'll do, let me clear the screen so it's easier to read. So we have different users on each system, which makes sense. They're different computers. Who's to say that they'll have the same users logged into each computer? So on Opus, we have Homer. He's logged in from a system on campus 4.11. RSIMS is logged in from outside of off campus. Same with SimBen's logged in 2 times, also from off campus. Where's the other login? It's the login that we used over here. We first logged in as SimBen on Opus, then we SSH to Sunwa. That login session is still active. Okay. On this system, we've got Juliet, RSIMS, Hugo, and there is ourselves SimBen90 with the CIS lab domain name. So who tells you who is logged in? Let's do the ID command. ID command here says that the user is SimBen. The UID is 1001. ID command on Sunwa shows that the user is not SimBen, it's CIS lab SimBen90, okay? And the UID is a bit longer because this is a UID that was generated by Active Directory. Okay, let's do the next command, TTY. We're on PTS4 on Opus. On Sunwa, we're on the same. It's just coincidence. We're on the exact same pseudo terminal, PTS4 on both of them. Okay, and that's just a coincidence. If we logged in again, it would have a different pseudo terminal. Okay, uname. Okay, the name of the kernel on the operating system on Sunwa is Linux. On Opus, the name of the kernel of the operating system is Linux. That's the same. Let's look at hostname. Hostname on Sunwa is sunwa.cislab. Remember the hostname you type to see what the name of the computer is you're talking to, which is great. If you can't remember, or you come back, you take a break, come back, can't remember which are these terminals is attached to which computer. So this one's attached to oslab.cabrillo.edu. This one's attached to sunwa.cislab. And then we're going to look at the distro. So we'll use cat the /etc issue file. Oh, look at that. Sunwa is a Fedora system, and it's version 17, which the engineers nicknamed Beefy Miracle. And on Opus, the name of the distro, we looked at this in task 1, but let's look at it again. The name of the distro is CentOS. So this is a CentOS distribution. They call that a distro. A distribution is a distro. It's version 6.2. So there you go. Just comparing commands between systems. You can use commands to find out about the system you're on, which we've just done. Okay, so we're going to do an exit on Sunwa, which will pop us back into Opus. Let's just see what happens here. So if I'm on Sunwa and I type exit, watch my prompt change. Okay, I logged out. The connection to Sunwa is closed. There is my Opus prompt. I am back on Opus. If I do a who command here, notice we have two Symben users. This one is the one on PTS4, okay? This one is the one on PTS2. Now watch what happens when I exit this session. Watch what happens to the Symben user on PTS2. So there's the Symben user on PTS2 and the who output. Here is the Symben on PTS2, and I'm going to exit. Okay, so let's do the who command again. Notice now there's no Symben user on PTS2 because that user is logged off. Let's log off our other session here, and that completes task 2. Hope that helped.